Hey, movers and shakers. I want to talk to you today about something that's pretty unsettling. It's pretty traumatic for both you and your shipper, for you and your customer, and that is being accused of theft. What do you do when your crew, when your company has been accused of stealing? Well, we're going to be talking about that today. But the first thing I wanted to tell you is it's not a matter if, it's a matter of when you're going to be accused of theft by a shipper. Now, that doesn't make the shipper automatically wrong or automatically right. Sometimes the shipper gets it wrong. Sometimes they'll accuse you of stealing, and sometimes it's a very subtle accusation. Like they'll give you a call and say, hey, we're missing our Instapot, or we're missing blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, we'll take a look and see if it's around here, and I'll ask the guys if they've seen it. And usually what will happen is a week, a day, two, whatever it is, a month maybe, they'll open up a box and there's their Instapot and it's all good, right? Sometimes it's that subtle. Sometimes it's very overt, like, I'm missing my Instapot and I'm gonna go all half-cocked. So, it can be very traumatic. And let's be honest, it's hard traversing and negotiating these turbulent waters, because if you do it wrong, it's going to be bad for you, it's going to be bad for the company, it's going to be bad for the crew, and ultimately bad for the shipper. Everybody will get a bad taste in their mouth, and it's something that could linger, depending on how it's handled, for a long time, and something that you will have to overcome over and over and over again. Because if you do it badly, it's almost for certain that you're going to get a bad review. And when someone says, oh, they stole from me, whether you stole from them or not, that's going to be on a review. And a lot of these guys don't, like Google and Facebook, you cannot remove any of those reviews. Even if it's proven false, that review will still be there. Yes, you can rebut it. You can say this has been proven false. And if they need, send them to a website or email address or whatever it is to get the full data. But that review will still be there no matter what. It takes a court order to get something like that taken out of your reviews. I know I've had to do that because they just won't review it. So it's something that we have to negotiate very good. So the first thing I got to tell you is you just don't go half-cocked, right? You just do not want to go half-cocked. You want to stay calm. You just want to stay composed, be professional. You want to listen very, very, very carefully to what the customer is saying, to what your shipper is saying. You don't want to interject. You don't want to you just want to say, got it. I hear you. Understood. All right. Okay. And you just want to be very, very good. The next thing you want to do is you want to start documenting the accusation. You want to get everything you can in writing, right? You want to make sure that, hey, you want to find the date, the time, the location, what was stolen, how much it was stolen. Do they have receipts of this? Everything that you can document, you're going to want to document it. And you want to document it well. The more documentation, the better. There's no such thing as too much documentation. Now, the next thing you got to do is you got to actually start investigating the accusation. And this means you got to talk to your crew. You got to talk to them. And, some of the crew can get very offended that they're being accused of stealing, especially when they know that they didn't do it, right? The one thing you cannot do is you cannot start yelling at your shipper. You cannot start yelling at your customer and saying, you're wrong. My crews are upstanding citizens and they would never steal and blah, 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 right? You can't be doing that. You just can't, because believe it or not, you might have a thief in your crew. And the accusation just may be true. And it's only going to make you look like a complete and utter moron if you do an investigation and find out, in fact, that one of your crew or crew members, one or more crew members, actually did steal. And if they did, you got to take the appropriate actions, of course, with the customer and the law enforcement, etc. Right? But you cannot just assume that your crew is automatically innocent, right? The next thing you need to do is you need to start checking inventory. Was Did you even do an inventory? And if you didn't, you should. Especially on long distance moves, you should have every single item documented. There's little stickers. You put like a little number sticker on each and every item, and you put sticker number. It says sticker number 1, couch. Sticker number 2, love seat. Sticker number 3, and you just create this inventory sheet. And if you need an inventory sheet, you can always go to sevenfiguremovingacademy.com/shop, and we have documents and templates and everything for those in our document section, and you can get a kit that has them, and I'll leave a description down below in the description if you're looking for that. But even if you don't get our templates, you can definitely go online and create through whatever you want. If you're good at Excel or Sheets, Google Sheets, you can create your own inventory sheet. It's very easy to do. So basically check that. If you haven't done an inventory, then you need to start checking around. Maybe it was left in the trucks. Maybe, when they're taking all the blankets, and if they didn't fold up the blankets, it was stuck in a blanket. That's happened to me before, where the item was stuck in. So they moved the item, they would put it on some pads, and they threw a bunch of pads on it and just totally forgot about it. It does occur. So if they didn't fold the pads, which they should have, then they would have found that. But if they hadn't, you might want to check your pads. You might want to check in the basic equipment, because it looks really bad when you've lost them. Even as much as the hardware to assemble a bed can look disapprovingly upon you and your company and your crew, right? So definitely check that. If there's security footage, if your customer has security cameras, or there were security cameras in the area, maybe you should have security cameras on your truck and inside the cab. Check the footage. Make sure that everything's okay. And then next thing you need to do is you need to make sure that the customer, your shipper, actually calls the authorities. They should actually, as soon as they know that there's a theft, even if your crew's still on the premises, they should call the authorities and have the authorities come right then and there. Boom. Just done. And quite honestly, you got to get that done, right? And if you can't find it, and if the item is of a particular value, have them call the authorities and get a police report. You want a police report. And then once that police report, you want to cooperate with the law enforcement fully, completely, and utterly, right? And any of your crew that was on it, if you got to instruct them to cooperate, and if they don't, this should be a fireable offense, like an immediate termination. All right, and then obviously the cops will start going for them. Another thing you want to do is during this process, you want to have a non-disclosure agreement, confidentiality agreement written up, and say, hey, look, no matter the outcome, whether the outcome's in favor of us or the outcome is in favor of you, we don't want you reporting this to everybody and their brother. In other words, it's going to keep them quiet, right? We don't want them, especially if it comes out against them, right? If you find the item and they made it this huge mess, we want to be able to protect them from our guys or anybody in our company, us or anybody saying some bad things about our customer. And if it was true that we don't want them going all over social media, leaving bad reviews for us, right? So you got to explain what a non-disclosure agreement is, and that they've got to fill out the non-disclosure agreement and make sure that there's confidentiality right there. We want to protect ourselves from any bad ill will, because no matter what's happened, we're going to try. If our crew did do it, we're going to make it right. That's the thing. But even if we make it right, that doesn't mean your shipper's going to be happy. And if they're not happy, they're going to go blah, blah, blah to all their sycophant friends. So let's get that handled. Provide an NDA, get them to sign it. And if they refuse to sign it, they can refuse, but also say, look, if you refuse to sign it, then we're not really going to cooperate too much with you unless we whatever your policy is. But you should definitely get that, right? So what are you going to do when it's been proven that your employee or employees did steal an item? It doesn't matter how big or small or how much the item is worth. What are you going to do? Well, the first thing is termination. Just got to get rid of that. That is a bad apple that you do not want in your company, and they will do it again, right? the next thing you need to do is you need to compensate your shipper, right? If you can, you give the item back. If the item is broken or damaged or altered in some way, replace that item, right? And it might require a little bit of an outlay of cash. So maybe, let's say we go with the Instapot example again, and we just say, oh, they stole my Instapot. You find out that a crew member did steal the Instapot. You give them back the Instapot or a replacement Instapot, and you might have to say, here's $100, here's $50 or whatever. Would that make you happy, kind of thing? And then when they do get happy, again, you got to get them to sign the NDA and be done with it. Right? Make sure that you cooperate with all the legal. If they don't want to press charges, that's fine. You still go on as if they did, but you still cooperate with law enforcement thing. And of course, you want to apologize up, down, left, right, however you need to the customer and shipper, and make it right with the customer, however you need to do it, so that they are at least, if they're not happy, they're at least satisfied that it's been solved, that it's been handled. You got to let them know, say, we apologize. We terminated this guy. He's gone. Here's your item back. Here's your replacement item. Here's a little bit of cash. Please sign this NDA for me. Please, 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 kind of thing. Right? Now, if there is a false accusation, you got to provide the evidence that, hey, look, here's the inventories, here's the footage. You just got to provide the footage. You got to provide all the evidence, that's overwhelming evidence that you guys did everything under your power to investigate and look at, and that it was not a situation you do. Sometimes that it'll resolve itself if it was a false accusation, because they'll later find it was in a box that they thought it was in another box, whatever. It happens, right? Right. And then you just educate the customer politely, professionally, that the accusation was understanding, and provide them with the thing that so supports your conclusion. And ask them, hey, we're sorry that, this one thing. We understand things like this happen. We are not offended, but we would prefer if you sign this NDA, to protect you. We're not going to say a word, but we need you to sign this, that, in it. And you fix, if you did spew out, that you fix it, right? And then, obviously the compensation has to be commensurate with what that was done. So sometimes replacing the item or returning the item is satisfactory, but most often they're going to be dissatisfied with you. So you're going to have some sort of compensation, written apologies, proof that you fired a guy, policy statements, and then again, you might have to pull some money out of your pocketbook over and above what you've already done. So do that. Now, you want to get some preventative measures. First and foremost, you got to hire the right guys, right? You got to figure out what you did wrong in your hiring procedure with that particular person. Find the holes in your hiring procedure and fill it with the right procedure so that it does not happen again. Will it happen again? It may. It's not foolproof, but you want to at least clog the hole that made it so that this guy could come aboard and be tempted and be able to do that to your company, right? Also, you want to continuously train your crew and your members about ethical conduct, professionalism, and theft prevention, right? And you want to make sure that any crew member, because someone didn't steal that in a vacuum. If I stole something, somebody else knew about it, because let's face it, if they're going to steal, they're not too smart. So obviously there's like 2, 3, maybe 4 guys on the crew. One of the 4 or more than, or maybe on the entire crew, stole it. I mean, it's not hard. It's not rocket science that you're a complete moron. If you stole something, you're going to get caught, right? So these guys are not rocket science. So you got to, and they didn't steal it in a vacuum, right? Maybe, maybe some pocketed something they didn't tell anybody else, but somebody would have known, there would have been some indication, like I would have had some indication that Joey stole something, right? I just know that he's that kind of guy. I would have had some indication. So it's not done in a vacuum. So you got to make sure that anybody that's in and associated, they're also going to be accused and affected by this, right? And if there is a crew member that did steal, the other crew members, they need to be punished because they should have been on top of that and made sure that guy didn't do it. sadly, that's what you got to do. So maybe they lose bonuses. Maybe they get a write-up in their thing. It just, you got to, it's, again, the theft is not done in a vacuum. And most times they'll go, yeah, man, look what I stole. And they're going to tell their friends, and they're going to go, oh, yeah, man, that was pretty cool. You got it. And they'll be joking together. It's not cool. And it's not, it's not professional. And it just, and they probably go to jail. But then you got to make sure that you implement security measures. So if you don't have any security measures, you need to get some cameras in the truck. You need to get cameras in the cab. And then you got to have making sure that your paperwork instructs your customer, your shipper correctly to prevent anything like this. So if there's jewelry, money, things that could be easily stolen, make sure that is that you don't move it, or it's locked up in a box or a safe or something like that during the move that the crew just doesn't have access to. And then finally, you just got to, the communication level has got to increase between you and your crew, between you and the shippers, and so on and so forth. And you got to make that communication two-way. And these are just the items that you're going to do, right? Now, the one thing that you got to do too is, if there is an accusation of theft by your shipper about your crew, one thing you need to do is you need to put them on a routing that gets this done thing. So you should have a checklist for the shipper that you send to the shipper immediately that gives them step-by-step procedures on how to handle this. And it's got to be, they've got to actually do the checklist. If they don't do the checklist, they refuse to do the checklist, then you got to instruct them, hey, here's the checklist. You got to follow it exactly. You cannot miss a step. And if you don't, or you refuse, then we will not be responsible for that lost or stolen item, no matter whether we stole it or not, right? So they've got to fill out the checklist, and that checklist is going to be very, very specific. It's going to talk about calling the police, depending on the value, about them doing, checking all their areas thoroughly, and so on and so forth, right? So you definitely got to get them immediately as one of the first things. Someone calls, you say, hey, we got a checklist for this. You need to do it. Here's the procedures. Here's your steps that you got to do. If you do not, boom, 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 right? And it's got to be a thorough checklist. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, you got to have a non-disclosure or some sort of confidentiality agreement signed between you and the shipper, so that you protect the shipper from any kind of false accusations or social media attacks or whatever, and it protects you from their kind of attacks on social media, right? And that should get signed right away, right? Let them know that, hey, we're going to make this, we're going to get it resolved for you, we're going to, however the income, whatever the outcome rather, and you just going to sign it. This protects us, it protects you, right? And please sign this. It's also should be on their checklist as well that they need to sign this. And then you provide that for them, right? And do take any accusations, whether right or wrong, seriously, right? You just got to make sure that it's all done professionally, whether it comes out that the item is found later on, and so on and so forth. But you'll find that, especially when you say, hey, look, you need to call the police and file a report, they're going to go, I really don't want to do that. Okay, that's fine. If you don't want to do that, we'll do an investigation, but we're not going to put a lot of emphasis in it, right? It's also an indicator if they don't want to call the police, they don't want to do a police report, they're really not sure of themselves that you stole it. They just wanted to blame somebody because, that's the first knee-jerk reaction that people have, right? But this especially when you say, hey, you got to call the cops and file a police report, that really puts them more thinking, because then they start thinking, well, what if it's in a box and I didn't open up all the boxes? I can't find it. And maybe I misplaced it. Or maybe I did open it, I didn't realize it, and I put it in a closet somewhere and I forgot where I put it. They start thinking, because they know if they file a police report and then they find it, the police are going to follow up on that and they're like, hey, you know, that's not okay. Will they get in trouble? No. But in their head, they're going to go, you know, I might get in trouble if I falsely accuse these people. Now, it also protects you too, by having them call the police. It protects them and it protects you, because if they do go half-cocked and they start doing all this stuff and it's later found, the police later find that they did misplace it, they did just, you know, found it in another thing, then that's going to be in the police report, and you can take that police report and then you can, if you have to, and this is the last resort, you could take that and sue them and to get off any kind of false reports that they have done on social media or wherever they might have done this, right? So it does protect you as much as it protects them. Okay, guys, so these are the actions that you need to take if you are accused of theft. And again, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because you will be accused. Whether falsely or accurately, you are going to be accused at one point. And it's how you handle it that really makes the difference. And these steps that I just gave you will actually help you to resolve the problem professionally, politely, and with dignity between your shipper and yourself, depending on whatever the outcome. Now, I did promise you a special offer. I have created an entire PDF ebook documentation for this. I've got a checklist for you, a checklist for your customer, and a template non-disclosure confidentiality statement that you can use, you can model whatsoever. I'm going to leave a description in the first comment of this video where you can go and actually buy and get that. It's going to be very cheap, $5. You can afford it. If you don't want to afford $5, by all means, go have an attorney do it for hundreds of dollars. By all means. But even that stated, even if you do get the thing for $5, make sure that you get it with an attorney. You should have an attorney look it over, make sure it's fine. It's still going to be far cheaper if you just go have an attorney do it for you. Guys, so that's going to be in the first comment below. Hopefully I've earned your subscription today, and if so, please subscribe to this channel. Give me a thumbs up if you have any comments about this topic or anything that you would like to add or debate me on. Please leave me a comment below. And guys, I like you. I love you. Go and do something great today. Have a good day. Bye-bye.